Hey, Cam here from Training Tilt. Welcome to this week's episode of Endurance Coaching Business. Sorry, I almost forgot all that. It's been a while since I've done it. Hope you all had a good Christmas and a happy New Year. Today I wanted to jump into something, a bit of a trend that's happening at the moment, and that is HYROX racing. More specifically, the case for HYROX coaching for current endurance coaches. So that's probably you. So a year or two ago, if an athlete told you they were doing some sort of fitness racing, you probably assumed that it was something like CrossFit or obstacle course racing, and they were probably doing something very different to triathlon and running. But now a lot of runners and triathletes are thinking a lot more specifically around HYROX racing. So over the last few months, I've also noticed something interesting inside our own ecosystem and Training Tilt, that more and more Training Tilt coaches are adding HYROX blocks into their coaching offers. So maybe some hybrid memberships or a simple run plus strength packages, things that keep athletes engaged, maybe when their races feel a long way off. So seeing that shift and also seeing more athletes competing, I've seen a lot of endurance athletes competing in HYROX, was a bit of a nudge for me. So I've actually entered my first HYROX race, which will be HYROX Auckland at the end of January. I think that's only about 2 weeks away actually. So part curiosity, part market research, part wanting to just experience that racing firsthand. So on the business side of things for endurance coaches, so there's an obvious trend that a lot of endurance athletes are doing HYROX races. So if they're going to want to do HYROX, so they're going to get coached for it somewhere. So either by you or by a gym or a HYROX-specific coach. But if they leave your ecosystem for 8 to 16 weeks or whatever it might be that they train for, there is a chance that you might not just lose that training block, but the relationship itself. When they come back to triathlon, being coached by someone else, continuity could get a little bit messy, or maybe doesn't happen at all. So the question I'm posing today is, should endurance coaches brand out into HYROX coaching? So I think in general, yes is the answer to that. But before I go into more detail about that, let's just run through what HYROX actually is and why, compared to things like CrossFit and obstacle racing, why endurance athletes get it really fast and enjoy it. So HYROX, Global Fitness Race for Everybody, that's what they call it. It's part of their branding. And HYROX is like a standardized indoor race format, and it's made up of 8 times 1 kilometer run, so 8 kilometers of running, which is the first reason why it's attractive to endurance coaches. And those are each separated by a functional station, like a shed, sleds, ergs like rowing or a ski erg, farmers' carries, lunges, wall balls, etc. And it's the same structure, the same setup everywhere that you race, which makes it easy to understand, easy to benchmark, and very easy for people to get competitive about because of those reasons. So, as I said, the standardization is a big reason endurance athletes are gravitating toward it. It feels familiar, it's paced, it rewards engine, discipline, repeatability, core endurance traits, while adding a strength and muscular endurance component that most coaches agree is good for endurance athletes anyway, and they probably need more of that even to improve their endurance performance. So this isn't really hypothetical because endurance athletes are already doing it, not just day-to-day triathletes and runners, but I've seen a bunch of recognizable endurance names cross over. So Sebastian Kienle, although retired, he's done HYROX and spoken public about really enjoying it post-pro triathlon. Joe Skipper did one a couple of years ago in HYROX London. I believe he might have said it's one of the most exciting events he's ever done. Luke and Beth McKenzie from Australia, both ex-pro triathletes. They're part of the growing wave of endurance athletes leaning into HYROX style training and racing. They've been racing a lot. High-profile coach Dan Plews teamed up with ex-pro Olympian Simon Thompson just recently in Melbourne in December, and Dan's actually coaching HYROX now through his secondary brand. So EnduroIQ is his triathlon brand, but HYROX is his HYROX coaching brand. So the mix sort of varies, but the pattern is consistent. Endurance people are discovering HYROX and taking it really seriously. So why does this matter for coaches? Well, continuity beats handing them off to someone else. So when an athlete decides to do a HYROX block, they often go looking for, gym access, movement coaching, stations and race-specific prep, and of course community and training partners, which we know is a big part of endurance sport as well. So if you don't offer it as a coach, then the path of least resistance is that your athletes will join a gym, do a gym program, or they'll hire a HYROX-specific coach, maybe both. So that's not sort of direct competition in a hostile sense, but it definitely is competition, and there is a relationship risk there. So, your athlete could bond with this new coach and new community. Then their training history gets split across systems. If their coach is using a different platform for coaching, you might just become the summer triathlon coach, not the year-round performance partner that you might have built into your business now. So if instead you can say, awesome, let's do this properly and keep your long-term endurance goals intact, and you can coach them through HYROX, then you can stay at the center of their athletic identity, whether they're racing endurance or they're racing fitness racing like HYROX. So another good thing about HYROX is it can be a two-way pipeline. So it can be retention, like I just talked about, keeping your athletes, and lead generation, finding new athletes. So most coaches will understand that first direction, where keeping them is important, but triathletes and runners go to HYROX, do a block or season, and then they come back to endurance racing. So if you, as a triathlon endurance coach, can offer that HYROX phase, then you can keep the relationship intact with your current athletes, but also HYROX athletes can graduate into longer endurance goals. So a lot of HYROX athletes, so there's two types of our HYROX athletes really. One come from strength, maybe CrossFit, and the other come from endurance, like triathlon and running. And when the strength-based ones get into HYROX, they have to run 8Ks in a race, so they need to get into running. And then that can lead them into half marathon, trail running, or even triathlon. So a lot of those HYROX participants, they've already got that competitive mindset, and then they get a taste of that 8Ks of running, and then they'll be looking for an endurance coach or a running coach as well. So offering HYROX coaching can act like an on-ramp for those types of athletes. You could start with like an 8 to 12 week HYROX build or something, keep them engaged with year-round hybrid membership in your platform or something like that in your business model, and then convert those most motivated athletes into longer-term endurance coaching when the inevitable thing, like they want a bigger challenge, maybe they want to do a marathon or an Ironman. So if you're thinking like a business owner, then this is the ideal scenario. HYROX helps you retain your endurance athletes and attract new ones who might not have searched for an endurance-specific coach yet. So HYROX is a smart product expansion to endurance coaching because of the trend. So here's some coach-first benefits I see most clearly. So retention plus lifetime value. A HYROX block can be an off-season program that keeps athletes engaged when triathlon motivation dips off-season or when they're just having a break between races. It's also a great winter racing target that prevents them completely churning away from your coaching. So differentiation, most triathlon coaching brands are still positioned around swim, bike, run, but HYROX gives you a bit more of a legitimate way to say that you coach the complete endurance athlete, so engine, strength, resilience throughout the entire year. New revenue streams without a full rebrand, so you don't need to become a HYROX coach necessarily, but you can offer HYROX add-on blocks for your existing athletes, maybe a HYROX-specific package, 8 to 12 weeks, maybe a hybrid membership programming. So maybe you don't need to do one-on-one coaching for HYROX, but do like a group cohort plan or something for everyone in your local area doing the same race. And it can also be a forcing function to upgrade your strength coaching. So even if HYROX didn't exist, strength training has been trending from maybe an optional extra toward an expected part of your endurance coaching. So this is a real way to accelerate that shift and give your athletes a clear reason to buy into strength training and get you as a coach involved in strength training, maybe a bit more if you haven't been involved with that so much yet. And it's fun. So as a coach, coaching can get stale if you never stretch yourself. So HYROX is a good challenge. All the principles are very similar. Programming under fatigue, but there's a new thing like station economy, compromise running, pacing strategy, and strength endurance progression. So they're all new angles that'll make you a better coach, and learning new things is challenging, and we often avoid it as it feels a bit uncomfortable, but it's good to balance the ego. Try something you don't know much about. That's why I'm doing the race. And the flip side of this is that you can progress your knowledge and skills very quickly compared to things you already have expertise in. So just want to touch on this thing. It's not CrossFit. So a lot of endurance athletes consider CrossFit, but then bounce off it. It's got a bit of a reputation for injuries. So don't really think about HYROX like you think about CrossFit. Things like CrossFit includes like a much higher skill needed for like the lifting exercise, more complex movements. It's got a much higher variability, so it's really hard to measure progress week to week. And there's a much higher likelihood of injury due to those reasons, doing those movements under fatigue that many endurance athletes aren't really prepared for. But HYROX, in contrast, uses movements that are generally more accessible and require less technical skill to perform safely, like sled push-pull, ergs, carries, lunges, wall balls. The training is still hard, but the movement is often simpler and much more standardized and easy to measure and actually progress. So that's sort of probably the main reason why HYROX has become a bit of a hybrid gateway drug for runners and triathletes. It feels intense without feeling like you need a gymnastics or like a weight training background to participate. So let's just go through the cons quickly then, and then some ways to offset them. So branching into HYROX coaching isn't like free upside, and here's some challenges. So you need competence on the stations yourself as a coach. So if you're not confident coaching things like sled mechanics or wall ball standards or the burpee broad jump sufficiently, then you might feel a bit exposed. So just do some education, plug into the HYROX coach ecosystem, and then just keep learning. Like I said, they're not complicated stations, so it's quick to learn. Equipment plus logistics can be a bit limiting. So not every athlete has a sled. Most athletes won't have a sled. Not every gym welcomes structured station sessions or has all the kit there. So you could maybe partner with a local gym or build in substitutes. Online there's lots of YouTube videos where people are showing you like if you don't have wall balls or you don't have a sled, this is the training that you should do. So there's plenty of ways to mix that up without actually having all of the equipment, and then just schedule in intermittent in-gym station days. Most cities have a HYROX, an official HYROX training gym or non-official that do the actual stations, or they might do simulation races, etc. The other potential downside is programming conflicts, especially if they're still doing endurance volume. So a HYROX block piled on top of heavy triathlon or running training, is a quick way to fatigue. So treat it like a real season with trade-offs. So reduce endurance volume during the station emphasis, keep 1 to 2 key endurance sessions to maintain identity. But like I said, there's 8Ks of running in a HYROX race anyway. So endurance is an important part of it. Periodize strength, endurance, and add the impact gradually as well. The other potential downside is brand confusion. So are you still an endurance coach? So a lot of coaches will worry HYROX maybe will dilute their current positioning. So you can frame it as a different sort of niche, like frame it as an endurance first hybrid coaching. You're coming from the running and endurance side of things, and then adding in the strength in the station. So, for example, we help endurance athletes get strong, stay durable, and race HYROX without losing their endurance base, which, some athletes are probably a little bit worried about that. So you're not abandoning endurance, you're just becoming more valuable to your athletes' real lives, because the reality is if they want to do HYROX, they're going to do it. So bottom line, if you're going to be coaching triathletes and runners in 2026, HYROX is not like some sort of weird outlier or anything. It's becoming like a mainstream second sport, or maybe even equal or first sport for endurance athletes who are looking for something competitive, measurable, and community driven, which is all very similar to running and triathlon. So you don't have to become a full-time HYROX specialist, but if your athletes are asking about it, or maybe not asking about it, but you're seeing that they're interested, it's worth having an answer if they do, and ideally an offer if they're not asking you, maybe offer it. Because I'm sure a lot of endurance athletes may not have pulled the trigger yet, but I'm sure they're thinking about it. So if you're a coach who can say yes and will do it properly, that's the coach who keeps the relationship, keeps the continuity, and builds a business that lasts. Right, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.